Beyond.
Oh, we didn't say what order we were doing it again. Let's start over.
God damn it.
Beyond.
No, we're here.
We
Beyond.
say it, we can move on.
Beyond?
Beyond.
Beyond, and hello everyone. My name is Jonathan Dornbush. I am hosting for IGN Beyond 558. That really threw me for a loop, let me tell you. We have so much to talk about this week, but before we begin, a reminder, Beyond is live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific at beyond.ign.com. You can catch it there a full 24 hours before it is available on any other platform, so be sure to go to beyond.ign.com every Wednesday at 3. Now back to the actual show. We have a lot to talk about this week, as you can see in Brian's hands. We're talking about Spider-Man, spoiler-free, as this episode is airing on Wednesday before the game comes out. We obviously don't want to spoil any of the crazy, good, bad, whatever it may be of the game. We don't want to spoil a lot of it for you, so we will be talking a lot of generalities about the game, but all of us here at the table have played it. All of us have beat it, and so we have a lot of thoughts. We're also going to be talking about some of the games that are coming out right now, the PlayStation Plus lineup, and I was at PAX for a few days, so I will tell you about some of the really cool games I saw there that will either definitely be coming to PlayStation platforms or hopefully will at some time in the future. But first, Spider-Man.
We're going to be talking a lot.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
He's almost here.
Whip.
So to kick things off, Jonathan, you reviewed the game for IGN.
Yes, I reviewed it. I gave it an 8.7, which is a great game. It is I think, a very good, great game.
That is literally, if you look at our rubric, 8 means great.
And
it
7.
It even rhymes as a handy mnemonic.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I actually looked at the rubric for the first time in like 2 years to be like, wait, what do all these words mean again? Just to make sure it really matched my...
0.3 more, it would have been amazing. It would have been the amazing Spider-Man.
But I settled with great, yes.
Now it's just the very great Spider-Man.
The great Spider-Man.
Which is still a great Spider-Man. No, so you can obviously see my full review. The full written is on IGN.com. The video review is on IGN and YouTube as well. So you can hear a lot of my thoughts. So I really want to know from all of you guys how you felt about the game. I thought we could break it down to a few major aspects of the game. Specifically, I wanted to start with, I think, one of the biggest things people want to know about this. How does it feel to be Spider-Man and swing around the city? How is the web swinging? How is traversal in this world?
I would say better than ever, and probably some of my favorite traversal in an open world game in a very long time. And I think with open world games in general, that's a big part of it, right? Getting around is a huge part. When you look at the Assassin's Creed games, even when they make them kind of perfect in terms of traversal, there's still that kind of stickiness where you end up like running down a hallway or a corridor and you jump to kill somebody and end up stuck to a wall or something. If you look at the old Spider-Man games, that's really the ghost we've been chasing for years now, is trying to get that right again. And I think this game does that so well, with a little more realism in terms of where your webs are actually going. It does feel like they are tethering to specific points. When you
if there's no tall buildings around you, he will not grab
when
one.
you
have
whip
to wait
through
for trees.
through Central Park or something, which is pretty big in this game. This is a very big Manhattan, and only Manhattan for now. Let's see if they add more boroughs later. You'll actually see his webs kind of thwip and attach to things. And there's a fluidity to all that that's just incredible. I think like running over buildings, running up the sides of buildings, sort of like just hopping in and out of kind of like corridors on top of buildings and like just pipes and all this other fun stuff. It just feels really fun and great. And occasionally you get stuck to something, and occasionally it gets a little wonky.
You'll like run up a wall, and you're like, get off this wall.
There's a great rhythm to it, though. Like early on, I didn't quite know what I was doing. Like definitely, it takes some practice to get into it, and like you won't just immediately pick it up. But I think that's because it is deep enough, kind of control-wise, that it really there's something there to kind of grasp onto. But I spoke to Brian Inahara at E3 about it, and I was like, would you like? I know that when Sony Santa Monica was making God of War, they spent so much time getting the axe right, like that feel of the throwing the axe. And I was like, is the web slinging kind of the same deal with this? And he's like, yes, very much. This was a thing that we focused on from day one and kept tweaking it. And I would say that as far as Spider-Man traversal goes in a game, I think that this is I don't know how you'd improve past this.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know how this could be better.
It improves upon itself as you keep going. Like it's one of those things, and I always like wince when I hear people say like, oh, the game starts out okay, but it gets better the more you play. Or if you put 10 hours into this game, it gets really good. Because I think that pushes people back. I think the game starts out very good in terms of traversal and gets excellent.
I think you get excellent.
You get excellent.
Well.
And
I notice how much better I am at swinging around. The two big things that stuck out to me is the game does have fast travel nodes that I pretty much never used. Like I just was like, oh, it's 2,000 meters away, no problem. And then the other thing was the game starts and there's like a few collectibles, and then as you progress, it's like here's more to get. And I never, it does this like map sweep and it shows all the collectibles, whatever, showing up.
Yeah.
And I never thought to myself, like, this is now too much, know?
No,
like,
I think
I was like more excited.
It when it starts out, it almost is underwhelming because you see the whole map of the city and you can go out and explore everything, but you do the thing where you sort of unlock towers and there's like, here's some stuff to do. And when you first start out, you're kind of like, that's it, really?
Yeah, I did all the towers and backpacks in the first few hours.
It actually took me about an hour and a half to get all the backpacks and all the towers, and I was like,
is this it?
That's it?
I was really worried that was going to be all it was, and then as you kind of progress through the missions, they start giving you more objectives to go track down, and kind of at the same time, like there was also the whole like story-wise, this is Spider-Man as like a fully fledged hero. This is 8 years into Peter Parker's career as a superhero.
Yeah,
and I was really curious how like progression would work with that. Like, how are you going to justify him getting new abilities as you go on? And there is a skill tree. Obviously, there's things to unlock and upgrade. And some of them aren't cosmetic so much as they are like it's almost taking off training wheels or giving you more to play with as you're playing. Like one I really love specifically is, and this aids with traversal a ton, when you're swinging around, if you do a fast, I don't know what you call it.
It's like an air dash?
There's the air dash.
Oh, yeah,
and then it's
quick.
like you get like more, it's like a quick web.
Yeah,
or something.
and you get
It just pulls you forward.
Right.
It lets you isolate a focal point effectively, and then hit it. And if you do it with the right timing, you can leap off.
And it's so much fun.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, like that's one that is very like once you get the hang of that, you're like, I am in control of this. Screw fast travel. I don't want to mess with that at all. I just want to get out there and swing around. And then there's another one where if you get the option to do like stunt combos.
Yeah.
And it's like totally stupid. It just gives you like an incremental amount of XP because
like 2 XP.
It's not a lot, but it's really cool because I've been between missions in that game, and I've been like close to leveling up, which you can do in this game. I mean, the level cap I think is 50, and I'll be just a little bit away, and I'll just start whipping around the city and just jamming on combos.
It's like you hold down circle and triangle while you're in free fall, and then rotate the analog stick one way, and you just do like different
backflips and twirls.
It almost has this like Tony Hawk feel to
totally.
it.
It's like,
where
it's like, can I fit in one more flip before I should
it's
stop
also-
doing
you did a
this?
720 360 spaceman, no holds, jokey ollie or whatever.
It's hard to talk about. It's hard to talk about
they
traversal.
also have trick names. I just want
Yes,
to
they do.
add,
Yeah, they do.
It does
Which is cool.
say that you did a whatever.
Yep. It's hard to talk about traversal in this game without talking about one of my favorite elements of this game is going from traversal into combat by effectively isolating and pinpointing on your radar a random street crime that just pops up out of nowhere. And you'll get something kind of on the police blotter will show up in your radio. I don't know where that is in his suit, maybe just in his ear, or he's got a walkie-talkie. And so you'd be kind of whipping around the city, and you'll see a red spot hit up, and all of a sudden they'll be like, "Oh, then 5 guys are trying to rob this bodega," and you're like, "I got to beat these dudes."
Yeah, the local burger chain is
Yeah.
shaking up. Mom and pop.
And so you can air dive from the top of the Empire State Building 100 miles an hour into a group of criminals, isolate one of them, hit the triangle button, you will dive kick into one, and then you can immediately start isolating each one in that crowd and picking them off one by one. And it doesn't hiccup. It doesn't skip a beat. And so when everybody was debating puddle sizes last week, I was just biting my tongue being like, this is one of the most technically amazing video games I've ever seen in my life. I don't know how they made it. I think people have been picking this thing apart for years. And it's just stunning, and it's so perfectly Spider-Man.
It doesn't like instance into something. It doesn't phase. Like you're in a combat mode. And that's something else, like all the missions, like there's stealth missions, there's combat missions, they never take away what you're allowed to do still. Like I expected to go to a stealth mission, they're like, you can't swing here.
Yeah, I would
occasionally,
debate that.
Yeah.
I mean, this game suffers from something that a lot of open world games suffer from in that whenever, it gives you all this freedom and this whole sandbox to play around in, but occasionally it's like, all right, please pay attention. This is your next objective. Do it this way. And it's tricky to have boss fights. It's tricky to have like linear segments in an open world game because it's sort of trained you to make your own rules. And occasionally it gives you some more rules to follow. So
yeah, but it's like you could always like if they were like, hey, there's Spider-Man, you could just swing away and stick to a wall.
Right,
it
but
doesn't
they're-
ground you.
Yeah, but the thing is, narratively in this game, it does shoehorn you into missions where you aren't controlling Spider-Man with all of his powers, and you are doing some Mary Jane or some Peter Parker stuff, etc.
Oh, sure.
And in situations like that, I think the pacing, no pun intended, comes to a crawl, and it effectively takes this incredible fluid open world game and drills it down into something that feels almost like last gen at times, you know. And Max, you were kind of talking about that.
I definitely this game, I feel like at its absolute worst feels like it is one of the best games from last gen. Like it has sequences that feel like I mean, you know, there's some instant fail like stealth sequences. There's some sort of very kind of there's some like sort of puzzly sequences that feel like, I mean, cool, I guess. That's all right. You know, I wasn't like outraged at it, but it's also kind of like, this seems like on edge you could have filed off.
It happens early on too. I mean, very early on in the game, they throw you to basically anytime you interact with technology in any capacity in this game, you have to unlock
science.
Yes.
And science in this game is effectively the electricity puzzles in BioShock.
I was going to say, they're
puzzles.
exactly just the BioShock puzzles.
And it's just getting water or electricity to flow through different squares, and you move them around, and they're cute and they're fun. It's the kind of thing that, like, if the food at Applebee's was taking too long and there was like a piece of paper in front of you and they had the puzzles on it, you'd be like, this makes sense here. But in a Spider-Man game, they throw them at you a lot, and there was no time where I was like, this is the worst thing ever, but there was never really a time where I was like, I'd so much rather be doing this.
I mean,
everything else.
That was the whole thing is going in. They were like, this is a game where you not just play as Spider-Man, but you're also Peter Parker. And it's sort of like, he's kind of, you want to be Spider-Man though. Like Peter Parker is just kind of a dork. Like I love him. He's great.
Yeah.
But like the whole point of Spider-Man is about like, oh, what if you could also be Spider-Man?
Yeah, I think the Peter Parker stuff is best executed in the story. And the issue with those science things, like I have a huge soft spot for the BioShock pipe puzzles. Like I did those to no end, and I played them in here every one that wasn't available to me, I played through all of them because I love them. But at the same time, they would come at moments where it's like, I'm just about to do a big thing. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me fix this electrocution.
Luckily, they never
here.
get too difficult.
No, they are very easy.
I'm so happy those didn't have time limits on them.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Or like the BioShock sludge going through.
Yeah, that would have been.
There was one time I got frustrated with one, and this prompt came up to skip it, and they're like, press this button to skip it. And I hit the button, and it goes, are you sure you want to do that? And I was like, yeah. And it was like, you really shouldn't do that.
You shouldn't skip this content.
I was like, dude, I'm skipping it. It's not a big deal. Like
I was always afraid to push it. I didn't know what happened.
I pushed it. It's
like,
okay.
I was like, what actually happens?
You still were able to beat the game.
You managed to 100% the game in spite of
I
skipping
did,
that?
yes,
Okay.
in spite of that. So I don't know if that
I
blocked.
demand a recount.
It's
I don't
like
think you did all the
it's like when you take too long, it eventually just pops up.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
hey, are you over this?
And so it got to the point where like there were a bunch of times where they'd be like, "Go back to the lab," and I'd be like, "No,
I'm
I don't
okay for
want
now."
to."
Yeah.
And I'd keep doing stuff. I did everything around. It was like the floor is lava. I was like everything else I'd want to do.
So, Brian, a little bit before you were talking about in terms of being able to traverse and go right into like a combat scenario and be able to do that. I want to know what you guys all think about the combat specifically, because obviously before the game came out, everyone was like, Batman Arkham has returned, but it's now Spider-Man. And as I mentioned in my review, it obviously has its roots in Arkham. Like it's undeniable, but I think that it does so much that applies it to Spider-Man specifically in the way they incorporate the gadgets and how nimble he is and how it's more about dodging than deflecting necessarily. So what did you guys think of that?
I totally agree. I think that the speed in which he moves through combat feels right for his character, whereas when you saw Batman doing that kind of stuff, it felt a little out of place. Batman was a lot more about like swooping down, knocking out a bunch of guys, swinging back up, and hiding in the shadows. Whereas this game, once you're out in the open, you're kind of out in the open, and it tries to pretend. It like cosplays as a stealth game every now and then. Like you'll do these sort of like rooftop warehouse missions type of things, right? And they'll be like wave one, you fight them all and you can stealth them all and you're hanging them from webs and you're whipping them up against the wall and you're doing all this cool stuff and no one sees anything. And then wave two just shows up and they're like, hey, it's Spider-Man. Like, I was hiding. But other than that, I think like once you really get into it, and again, it gets better the more you play, the more you unlock combos and moves and stuff like that. It starts to get really cool, and you start to fight a variation of enemies, and you do so really well. Some have to be disarmed. Some have to be basically webbed up and then stunned and then hit. Some have to be punched in the air, hit a bunch of times, and then smacked down. And if you get a combination of all of those, plus like sliding under guys and all this stuff, you get this incredible ballet almost, where this character is just bouncing off of walls and hitting everybody and sliding underneath people and punching other people in the air. And these guys don't know what hit them. And if you do it fast enough, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it feels incredible sometimes when you just get into a scenario and you're able to take out 10 guys before they even have a chance to react.
Yeah, I think it feels more forgiving too than Batman, where like they
Yes.
hit you and there's that like hit the record scratch moment where it's like boom, and everything slows down.
Yeah.
It lets you sort of bounce back into the rhythm a little quicker here.
This game definitely will push back, though, especially early on. I think the combat, like obviously the Arkham comparison is there. You have to make that. I would say that it does something like you were saying. The sort of the things that Batman would do in combat never really felt like they really made sense, or they a little bit more acrobatic than he should be.
Like when you dodge from like across the room and he does this thing where it just like teleports you across the room.
Like that's a Spider-Man
kind of
move.
makes sense for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
For Batman.
I mean,
it's
like,
just weird for
Spider-Man,
Batman.
there's
Jesus.
stuff where
He has
it's like
ice skates.
you don't even touch the ground,
Yeah.
where you're flipping around up, and just jumping from one guy to the next, and it feels very much like like how Spider-Man would move. And at the same time, if a guy gets a shot in, like it can wreck you. Like it can totally screw up your flow. And that's kind of it. Is like Spider-Man, like obviously he can take a beating. He's a superhero and everything, but at the same time he's not wearing like, a bunch of armor. He's like he's a kind of a he's like a 23-year-old boy or whatever. Like and a bunch of goons start wailing on him and shooting him with guns, and like, yeah, you're down.
Well, there's that weird suspension of disbelief that happens with that, especially when you're fighting guys on a rooftop. And it's cool because you can actually track it, but you'll throw people off a ledge. And I watched it happen a couple times.
And the web.
And the web catches them and they swing back down, which makes sense. They're still alive.
It's okay. I can
Bravo.
see their parachutes.
Yeah.
But there's this specific move that Spider-Man does that I jammed a lot because it's awesome, where you hit L&R at the same time and you effectively can lift up a manhole cover and swing it 360 degrees and whip a dude in the face, and no one is living through that.
Yeah, no,
Period.
Spider-Man 100% murders people left and
Oh
right.
yeah, there is some murder.
What it
Or serious
eventually
brain
boiled
damage.
down to was like, you'd see him like do the web, but like if there were guys on the roof, I would do the move where you hold R2 and your jump button, and he would jump into the air, like
Right.
50 feet in the air,
Oh, yeah,
and
that
then
later
hold
on.
X and square, and he would land, and it pushes them all back.
Yep.
And you'll see like 10 guys just fly off the roof at once. And that's kind of what every battle towards the end kind of broke down to.
Yeah. Well, I
pushing
mean,
people off a roof.
That's like your play style, though.
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
also like you go to different areas and they have like optional objectives where it's like stealth 5 of these guys, web 3 of them to the wall, and you like hit 15 of them with a car door, the same car door, and you're like, wow, that sounds like a crazy challenge. And it forces you to actually mix up your approach.
Yeah.
I found myself like there were things that I didn't fully understand how to do. Like this is a deep move set, and there's one where it's the web swing where you grab somebody by a web and swing them around over your head.
Yeah.
And if you throw them at other guys, they like stick together or whatever. Like
So when I finish the game, there's that chart that tracks all of the little sort of micro things you're doing throughout, right? And I had like 400 times I hit dudes in the mouth with manholes, and I like 200 miles I was swinging across the city. 0 times did I grab a guy and swing him around, and maybe I just missed the time they taught me that. I blinked.
You have to web them first.
Okay.
They have
you
to
have
be
to,
webbed, and then you hold triangle.
Yeah.
You don't hold the other button you always do.
You
to
like
throw
hold
other
triangle
stuff.
and then you tap triangle and you spin the guy around over your
There
head.
are, speaking to what you were saying, Max, there are so many different moves. It is easy to miss a lot of them because there are like 3 different throws you can do just on the ground. Let alone
I landed
in the
and it
air.
was like do a web whatever, and I had to go to my skill, and I was like, wait, which one is this again?
Yeah.
'Cause it does become like there's
And it's
a lot
easy
of
to learn
moves.
them all. There's a menu to look up all of them, but
They're
I mean,
not like,
and this
it's
is not
like a fighting game.
Yeah, this is not really a ding on the game itself. It's more us illustrating that you can play this game pretty much any way you want, which is really cool. We'll talk about the costumes in a bit, but one thing I wanted to mention was how a bunch of the costumes sort of intrinsically have a perk connected to them that let you do something special based on the theme of that costume. I don't want to spoil any of them, but some of them are really cool and actually change your combat style. Like you can actually call in certain assistants, I will say, in some way.
Spider Bro.
Yeah, Spider Bros. And they, like, when you feel like you're down and out, you hit this, I think it's the LNR6 at the same time, and something just appears, and then all of a sudden starts helping you out. And it's really cool because it changes your flow of combat, and it gives you almost like a finisher that maybe you wouldn't have if you were wearing a different costume.
The coolest
you
thing,
can,
though, you can switch them back.
Yeah,
and
you
forth.
can switch them
Yeah,
around.
they're not locked.
The
to
greatest
the
thing
costume.
ever is you're like, oh, this costume's ugly, but I have to wear it.
Yeah.
Instead, you're just like, I just need this power. Back to the costume I want to wear.
I hate that so much in games where they're like, this should be about like dress up how you want. Like this is, you're playing with dolls here. Like put on the costume you want, but but don't have it affect your gameplay. I think that's awesome. Also the gadgets. That's a huge
I
part
wanted
of
to touch on the gadgets. Using those was my favorite.
I totally thought they would make things too easy, and they don't. Like the game completely, it keeps pushing back. It offers like a fair challenge, but like in spite of the fact that you'll get like, I don't know, if you upgrade your, web bombs or you put down like mines or traps or like you'll have like a robot helper or whatever, in spite of having everything unlocked, the game will still offer like a good fair challenge, and it doesn't
Well,
just nerf the
not
whole
all gadgets work on all enemy types. If he's got a shield, he'll block the drones and stuff like that.
And you can also upgrade them incrementally, which is really fun because like you have your basic webs that you just shoot like crazy, and like I think you start with like 4 or 5 of them or 6, and then you can upgrade to like 12. But then you also get this one that's kind of like a torpedo, where if you kind of like soften a bad guy a little bit, you can hit him with one, and he'll just like spring 10 feet across the room and get stuck to a wall on a web, and it's so damn satisfying.
So
getting
good,
two guys
good for stealth missions.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, getting 2 guys to stick together with that trip mine is endlessly.
it's so
entertaining.
good.
I love that so much.
So good.
Yeah, the gadgets really switched up combat for me so much. I think, especially as it went on, I'm not surprised at how good they are, especially because given Insomniac's passion for wacky wheels of weapons that are like just bizarre all the time. I'm bummed there's not like a thing that turns people into actual
Wacky Wheels
spiders.
of Weapons was their kart racing game, right?
I hope. I would
Available on iOS.
But so yeah, the gadgets really, I think, kept the variety, especially both in stealth and combat itself as it was going on. And there are actually a few side challenges that you can do that really test your mettle with using these in the best way possible. And those tie into, I want to talk about how you all feel about the open world. I talked a little bit about it in my review in terms of, I think there are some really, really cool things you can do in this world. There are some things I think that are open world gaming 101 that we have experienced for the last decade that don't really push it in any interesting way. And doing them once or twice is okay because you're Spider-Man and that's still really fun. But doing them 30 or 40 times is not the same.
To get the good out of the way, I'll say one of my favorite things that you can do in the open world is remember the fact that Peter Parker is a photographer. And he works for a newspaper, and he's a journalist. And you get a camera in this game. And when you're diving through the air and whipping around the city, and you see like Madison Square Garden, and you want to get a cool picture of it, you can be basically cartwheeling upside down and flip out your camera, and it goes into bullet time. And you can slow down, take a photo of it, and get a little like upgrade thing because you photographed the landmark, of which there are X amount. And it's just so fun. And you can take really sloppy pictures. And he's always like, man, that was a great picture. I'm going to get a Pulitzer for this.
So I like that because that makes you feel like you're Spider-Man and that he is not only a superpowered acrobat, he's also a great photographer.
Yeah.
I'm not a great photographer or a great acrobat. So like that would just be a blurry, like I take blurry photos when I'm sitting perfectly still and I'm like, the hell is wrong with me? But like the fact that all that stuff in the comics where he'd be like, yeah, I'll just, hang my camera up here with some web and I'll get like a photo of me beating up the lizard and sell that to J.J. Jameson. And in this, it's like, that would never work. Like, so to have that be entirely forgiving and not this like awful punishing Pokemon Snap type experience, like mad props to that.
Yeah.
And then also day one patch, we are getting a proper photo mode.
Yes.
Which I'm so excited to play around with.
We haven't been able to play around with that, but there's a big trailer out about it, and it looks so cool because you can essentially create your own Spider-Man comic book covers.
And like Daily Bugle, like magazine covers. And stuff. Like I think in the trailer somewhere it shows him like punching out Fisk, and like you can put whoosh marks, and it looks super cool.
Zap.
Oh man, it's so cool.
Swoosh.
Yeah, so photography is a big part of this game. It's also it's part of the main objective in terms of the open world stuff, but it's also a hidden objective too. There's a bunch of hidden landmarks around New York City that you can take pictures of, and some of them are pretty hard to find. So that's really cool. I'm a little bummed on collectibles because there's those backpacks which we talked about earlier, which I found all 55 or 60 of them in like an hour. I just beelined because there's so much fun to get. They're all full of little collectibles that are very Peter Parker Spider-Man, just stuff he would have.
It was tough when we were deciding on like an Easter eggs piece, and they were like, so what are the best Easter eggs? And people started naming every backpack, and I'm like, okay, we need to decide what the best ones are, because we can't be like, here's 70 Easter eggs and 40 of them be just the backpacks, because every single one of them, yes, is an Easter egg. But aside from that, they are fun to find.
Yeah.
Like the stuff you see in them is super cool.
And then you, as you progress through the main game, crimes start appearing more and more, and narratively they start getting tougher, and they send in sort of tougher enemies, and the city sort of changes. I will say that like I was a little bummed at first that the day-night cycle doesn't exist. It's tied to the story effectively.
Yeah.
So you could be in between story missions and it could just be rainy during that part of the story. And then it's just rainy in Manhattan for as long as you keep going until you progress the story further.
Yep.
But I did every side mission in this game, and that's rare for me. So I will say that like some of them weren't very fun. Some of them were very fun. The combat stuff was awesome. There's something called research missions in this game, which I found to be incredibly tedious. It was some of my least favorite stuff in the game.
Those very much felt like something that you'd be forced to do in a game like last year.
Yeah.
And I realized that's sort of like there aren't really necessarily sort of like generational tells with gameplay, but this is one of the first games where I'm like, oh, this feels like something, I don't know, like something Assassin's Creed 3-ish or like, you know, like Prototype 2 or whatever. And
It feels like with every open world game, I always leave like the time trial, speed chase, race missions towards the end because I never like doing them. And this game has a bunch of stuff where you're like, chase the 3 drones, or like defuse the 3 bombs, or there's one where they're like
Pigeon.
yeah, or like follow the pigeon farts, you know, or
that's one that is seriously like. The research missions are all like they're all non-combat, I think, and it's like
It's literally just go here.
They're
do
like
this,
these
now
weird
go
like
here.
planeteer missions, and
Yeah.
one of them is like, oh no, the factory's pumping out like toxic fumes.
Yeah.
I need to swing through all of them to analyze them, and so
Yeah.
you're just playing as Spider-Man like awkwardly swinging through these big fart clouds.
Yeah.
repeatedly.
Well, he's coughing horrendously.
Yeah, and it's
just
kind of gross and kind of funny and kind of really dumb, and I'm
Yeah.
like. It doesn't make me hate the game, but it's definitely one of its weaker moments.
That was
Yeah.
the struggle I had with a lot of the side stuff, where it was like I didn't think anything was inherently or outright poorly designed or poorly put together, but it was just like when you're in these amazing narrative missions that have huge set pieces or really tie into the character super well, and then it's like, wait, let me chase these clouds of smoke, and then
There's
a few
one where it's like,
pigeons-
do something to these trees, like put this spray on this tree, and you don't know what trees work. It's like do 9 of them. There's like 50 trees, and so you're just holding L1 and swinging around until the numbers get
just hoping,
higher.
yeah.
And you're like, is this tree work? No, okay, I'll just keep running around.
There are missions that feel like maybe they had some kind of more challenging component that was pulled out because it was too much of a pain.
maybe yeah.
Like I could see that in the same way that like some of the puzzles, like I'm like these feel like it should have like a major countdown clock or like more stuff going on.
Yeah,
and then they
it's-
just didn't, you know. And I'm fine with it, but
It's weird. You mentioned the set pieces. It's weird to have a game that has such high highs and then lows like this, and then the middle, the meat and potatoes, is the swinging and combat, which is so fantastic. But some of the set pieces in this game are jaw dropping.
I wanna
absolutely stunning.
touch on one thing. I remember somebody was asking, like, we saw that original E3 trailer where it's all the whole chase after the helicopter and it's going through the city and there's a lot of quick time events. And like, I know that sort of that was very much like E3 trailer material. That sort of experience, like that was very much like a kind of an on rails, like a boss fighty type sequence.
Yeah.
But there are like randomly generated crimes that you come across that are car chases, and they're really cool.
The car chases are great.
And they're one of those things where I'm like, this is one of the, I don't know how they did this. Like basically you'll get a radio call in that there's like, oh no, there's a car, police are chasing a guy through the city, and you swing up on the car and there's like dudes shooting out the back at you from this vehicle. In some cases it's a 2-car like entourage, and the guys in like the rear car will be shooting at you as you approach the front car. And then you have to like, take care of the guys and then like flip the car over. And there are different variables that change depending on which one you're doing.
Some of them have like a bomb defuse mission,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
like in the back of a van, and you'll land on the van, pull all 4 dudes out one by one, beat them up, defuse the bomb, and then jump to the car behind you, and sometimes flip the car over, do a really quick QTE where you mash the triangle button to like, so it doesn't explode into a crowd, and then beat up the backup. And if you do this perfectly, which you will do because you'll get good at it, you can do it all in like 45 seconds.
It's really fun.
It's
And
incredible.
It's incredible.
Well,
And that
it-
feeling of like coming up on a car chase and being like, I'm Spider-Man. This is like, that's the thing he does in like every Spider-Man movie, every cartoon.
The first movie is literally you're swinging past the cops. Like that's when you feel like Spider-Man is like, oh, there's the car, and you the cops are chasing him, and you swing past the cops. Yeah, you're in the air dodging the bullets, and then you land on the car. Like that's like Spider-Man 101. It's
man,
so
yeah.
cool.
the crimes for me were so variable because there are those amazing like car ones, and then weirdly, to complete all of the crimes that are available to knock off certain requirements per district and everything that you have to do in the game. I eventually got to the final crime I had to do, and it was suddenly a crime I had never seen before, where there was a breakout of 10 guys and I had to go chase them down.
Oh, weird.
And I had never seen that crime.
I did one of those. I failed it though.
And there was only one.
Because I can get away.
And I was just like, wait, where did that come from?
Yeah,
and so,
I only got that one once and then it failed.
And I wish I had seen a little bit more variation like those where it was a totally unexpected one, or like the car chase ones that are so unique, because half of the crimes that I had to do to check everything off the list was beat up 10 of these guys.
Here's a group of guys, go down there.
It's mostly just like 8 guys are standing on a street corner being a pain in the ass, and you gotta go knock
You
them.
go down, you unleash the spider bro.
There's one that I love where you don't fight anybody. It's just a car accident and you've got to help people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, Spider-Man helps people. You know, like he actually comes and saves the day. He's a friendly neighborhood helper.
Yeah, and you got to do it quick enough, or like a dude will explode or whatever.
It speaks to the heart of this game, which I am so surprised at how genuine it is, and there is a heart to the story. Like, it is positive in so many ways.
You cry?
Oh yeah, I cried a couple times.
Spider-Man makes me cry. I love
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
yeah, me too. I did want to touch on the story, especially obviously this is the part where we have to say the most spoiler phobic of anything to say. There's a lot that we don't want to ruin.
Yeah.
But we can, I think, talk a bit in general about the flow of the story, the pace of the story, as well as the relationships that Peter Parker and Spider-Man have to sort of the core supporting cast. So how did you all feel about, let's start with sort of the flow of the story, the pace of it, compared to other Spider-Man stories?
I really liked the way this sort of subverted some of the expectations I had for not only the character, but the way he interacts with key characters in his world historically. I think it kind of throws some monkey wrenches into that, which I appreciated. It doles out villains in a very interesting way that I was not expecting. I think that his relationship with MJ is like, it feels like you're picking up on it after it's sort of dissolved a bit, and he's definitely kind of wanting it to get back to where he wants it to be. And
I love their relationship.
she does, and she doesn't really. I love her.
And you're not even quite sure what really happened there.
Yeah,
it doesn't spell it out for you.
Yeah, it's sort of similar in the way Homecoming was kind of like, you guys have seen Spider-Man, right? And you're like, yeah, and they're like, well, yeah, it's that guy. And you're like, but maybe some stuff happened. And so part of me kind of wanted to see that again, only because this game did so many great things. But it does skip over the whole origin, which this is okay. You've seen it in 7 films now.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I don't know what they're going to do with this franchise, but like it definitely sets up plenty of stuff for a cool sequel. I'm sure we'll get one because it's going to do very well. If they make a trilogy out of it and then they do a prequel to be like, here's young Spider-Man. It's been 11 years since we had an origin story. Let's have fun with it.
Yeah.
That could be really cool. And being like, oh, suddenly you're like 15-year-old, Peter Parker again. I don't know. I think that it does a really good job of subverting expectations because we have seen so many different iterations of Spider-Man and kind of principal characters throughout the 3 different cinematic reboots, and then of course there's 5 cartoon shows,
at least,
and then there's multiple versions of comics, and like there's some stuff you kind of go in with, and you expect to see certain things and certain stuff to happen, and in some cases it does a really good job of walking that fine line of some of this you think what's going to happen, other stuff you don't, and I think that it also pacing wise does a really really phenomenal job of taking its time and not trying to immediately wow you with that. I mean, it's, it obviously has lots of wow moments, but this is a 25-year-old studio handling a 55-year-old franchise. Like, we've earned a good Spider-Man game. Spider-Man has earned a good Spider-Man game. Insomniac has earned the right to make a Spider-Man game.
Yeah.
All of these things come together for this wonderful synergy where it seems like everyone involved really, really gives a damn about what they're doing. And because of that, the story isn't immediately trying to pander.
It's true. And every now and then you'll have 2 or 3 back-to-back kind of stealth insta-fail missions, which I think, slow the things down a little bit. But the game is not afraid to let you celebrate how great it is at its core by giving you a break every now and then. And it'll say Peter Parker will be like, oh, I don't have to have dinner with MJ until 8 o'clock tonight, so I might as well solve some crimes in the city. Yep. And so it just gives you you can just do 2 or 3 or sometimes just 1 or maybe 20 if you feel like it.
It does itself to bake. It does its best to bake that stuff.
Yeah.
Instead of just being like, I don't want to do this, he'll literally say, oh, got time before dinner. Might
Yep.
as well solve some crime.
Yeah, it's
Which-
nice that New York is
Control.
not on the brink of destruction at every moment. But wait, I have at least 5 pigeons to find.
Yeah,
you never
exactly.
get. You don't have that feeling, in it, which is nice.
I think the writing in general is excellent. When
so
it's not, it really sticks out. But for the most part, it's really, really good. These are really, really thought out, really endearing, really like earnest characters. The villains are over the top as they should
Yep,
be, but
yep.
I think that the core characters here that you've seen in the trailer so far, the way they interact with each other is very palpable. You know, like they feel like they know it all, but they're also obviously still learning. They're at that age where they've graduated high school, but they're still kind of figuring everything out.
This has possibly the most realistic couples fight
Oh my
via
God,
text.
yes.
Oh,
Like
yes.
I was
It's
like
so good.
panicking about that. I was like, this is too much.
It is incredible that.
Well,
moment,
and we had
yeah.
the option to show it off, and I purposely just didn't.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I actually don't want to show this.
It's such
like
great-
you call it out, and I'm like, I'm not going to show this.
No,
'cause,
I'm-
like it's so. I love that moment.
Yeah, I'm glad, like, peeking behind the curtain in terms of setting up the video review. I call out that idea in that scene, but we don't want to show it.
We
And,
didn't
you
show
were
it
totally
because
right.
I'm
to.
like, I kind of like, I don't want to show this.
Well,
such a
there's
great
been such a push, I think, in a lot of modern adaptations of comics to really tell that story of like, with great power comes great responsibility, and with all that is always just these like wet fart men, and they're just like, oh, I don't want to be a superhero. Spider-Man wants to be Spider-Man, and he's having a great time doing it, but he's also a young, weird, occasionally horny, conflicted dude who's just like kind of scared under there. And when he's texting his ex-girlfriend, you buy it.
Yeah.
Because like it's not like, oh, I don't
it
want to
doesn't
be
always go as
Spider-Man.
planned.
Yeah, it's like I'm an awkward idiot and I'm gonna screw this up. Like
Yeah.
when you're in a relationship like that, you say the wrong thing over text and it's there forever. And
Yeah.
you feel that weight. So
I love the dichotomy that this story brings to Peter Parker and to Spider-Man, because on the one side he's this amazingly heroic figure, and on the other he is this dude who is afraid to text wrong to this girl. And then on
Yeah,
one
when he's
hand,
walking around as Peter Parker, you do forget that is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That's the guy who also is like talking to Yuri about going to do a thing and stuff like that. And he's just like, he's so awkward.
And speaking to what you were saying, Max, in terms of the patience they take, like this is such a story of mentorship for Peter Parker in terms of him both learning to sort of be one, but also having one and wanting to aspire to be who that person is. And I think it's incredible the juxtaposition of that, but also that they allow those story beats to actually happen. And it's not just like, we need to get to the big moments of Spider-Man's career. So
Right.
No,
it's
I
like,
love
let's
that it
just
took
have characters.
that like movie approach, almost like Dark Knight, where it's like it's going to start with this huge action sequence, and then once that's done, there's like I'm not going to say nothing as in it was boring, but it's like that action doesn't happen again for a while. Just you do other stuff, and the story builds, but it like grabs your attention. It's such a movie thing. Also, I just love that the world is lived in. I love that the first scenes is like all these Fisk posters, and him and Fisk have all this like history together, and like, I'm finally taking you down. And they don't really they don't take the time to be like, these are all the battles he's had. It's just like, he's had battles,
Andrew
and now
Goldfarb-
you're finally taking him down.
Andrew Goldfarb, who did our preview of the first 3 hours of the game, I think said it the best, where he's like, the beginning of the game feels like the end of a Spider-Man game you didn't get to play.
Yeah,
I love that.
But not in a way that leaves you
not-
confused. It's
exactly.
very
Right,
much.
right.
Yeah.
You get it. It's comic books. Like you like it's very comic booky in the way that it's like, this guy's bad. You know who he is, and you take him down, and then the actual game starts.
Yeah, it's so smart about all of that.
Yep.
I don't want to go on too long about it because obviously people have not yet to play it, and we will be talking about it in more spoilerific terms later on. But just any sort of closing thoughts from all of you guys, anything you didn't get to say about the game that really stuck out to you?
I said this on Twitter, I'll say it again. This is a very technically gorgeous video game. It's we have this tendency now to judge video games based on screenshots posted to social media. I don't think that I think we're past the point of no return when it comes to judging games based on that. So look at this game on a dedicated on a PlayStation Pro on a 4K TV, or watch Digital Foundry's video, or watch our videos, or all our video breakdowns and stuff like that. And don't spoil this for other people. It's a very special, very fun game, and I'm so happy this is here. I hope this is the beginning of a wonderful relationship between Spider-Man and our PlayStations.
That'd be very nice.
Yeah, the way IGN works is my team in particular is people kind of take lead on a game. And I had no intention of taking lead on this game. I was going to definitely play it, but it was supposed to be Barrett. He's behind the camera, and but you guys were at Gamescom, and so it kind of just was like, hey, you have to do Spider-Man, and I ended up liking it. I ended up loving it, and I didn't think I was going to love it. Like, that's just my biggest takeaway is I liked it much better than I thought it was going to.
It's a really, really good video game, and I'm very happy that other people will get to play it soon. I think it's just end of the day, it's just a really good time, you know, and everyone's like, it's so like, this was exactly what I was expecting going in. I was like, I have faith in this game. This doesn't seem like it could go sideways. It has a few hiccups here and there. And like, obviously there's no such thing as a perfect video game, but like I had a wonderful time playing with it, and it made me love Spider-Man more than I already did. And it's a damn good year to have a PlayStation.
Oh yeah.
I can't wait. I'm like so glad that by the time the public gets to play this game, photo mode will be there, and now I get to just look at Twitter and Instagram and see other people's adventures. We all get to just talk about it, but now, because we haven't had photo mode, but now we actually get to see like what people come up with. It's super cool.
Also, like, Brian, you 100% of this game. You went and did everything. Jonathan, you platinumed it.
Yeah.
I'm so happy I didn't do that because the DLC is right around the corner.
Yes.
And I'm very excited to jump back in and be like, oh, right, I'm going to pick up sort of where I left off and have some other stuff to collect and things to chase down and, you know.
Yeah, it's very cool that they are continuing the life of this game so close to it, because I think it will really sort of enhance the experience to have that there right afterward. As we said, we will be talking about Spider-Man in a lot more spoilerific terms after the game has come out, so you guys can actually have a chance to play it. There's a lot more. You can read the full review that I have on IGN.com. You can watch the review. You can see a graphics comparison that Mark Medina put together. But we will have so much more Spider-Man content coming in the weeks ahead. But obviously, Spider-Man comes out September 7th, this Friday. There's some other games coming out this week, surprisingly.
Oh,
How
crap, look at
dare
that.
they?
It's fall.
Yeah, it's
It's release season.
It snuck up on
the
us.
madness has begun, including today as we're recording, so the day before this goes live, Destiny 2 Forsaken is out. You can hear a lot about Destiny on our show, Fireteam Chat. We have a full dedicated show every
Get that
week
off
to
the
it.
screen. Save it for Fireteam.
They have the exclusive discussion.
We have a guy
game.
here named Destin who
Yep.
likes to talk about Destiny.
Destiny.
It's just
This is
It's
an
perfect.
expansion for that game.
Yeah, it sort of feels like the Taken King of Destiny 2. We'll see
it's,
how fans actually react to it now that it will be out in the wild. But obviously, we will have a ton of coverage of that on IGN as well.
Real quick,
Yes.
did anybody play Destiny 2?
No. Oh, Max and I did a Let's Play. It's not my jam.
No, we didn't. Did we?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And you didn't play this?
I played maybe about 2 hours. I played the first Destiny for maybe like 3 or 4 months straight pretty regularly. But
I beat the main campaign, never went back for any expansion.
No disrespect to it. It's
I thought the game was fun. No interest in jumping back in.
just not my thing.
But it's free. Like,
Yeah.
it's literally
That's-
free right now.
So diving a little bit into that too, Destiny 2 is available as one of the headlining PlayStation Plus games for this month. They actually put it on sale early so that people who were who wanted to play the new Gambit mode could get into that before normally when PlayStation Plus games become available, which would be this week, I believe. So people had a few extra days to try out Destiny 2, which really great synergy for that game this fall to be able to have that going forward. Also out this week, Dragon Quest XI, which the wonderful Jared Petty reviewed for IGN, gave it an 8.8. So if you aren't in the mood to jump around Manhattan, you can walk around some wonderful fantasy settings. That is the exact
And
description of this game.
Fight some little blobby boys.
Yeah.
Jared put together a really great review of it. You should definitely check it out on IGN. Also, September 7th, same day as Spider-Man, NBA Live 19. Yes, you do shoot the basketball.
Basketball.
You do the basketballs.
Yes.
Zone of the Enders, the second runner. Shadows Awakening, and then as it said on here, I'm going to curse for the first time I think I ever on the show. Spider-Man is
There
out.
you go.
This
Which,
Friday.
as you can see, we put all of our efforts into this week because
Yeah.
we have nothing to say about anything else.
Yes.
Shadows Awakening is just like, that's like video game, the game
Yep.
title. Shadows Awakening.
So yeah, if you decided not to pre-order Spider-Man or are waiting for something to play ahead of Spider-Man, obviously Forsaken, Dragon Quest XI, Dark Quest XI are available for you to play right now. Additionally, for PlayStation Plus for the month of September, as we mentioned, Destiny 2 is free. What's kind of cool is basically every game this month is available for free on PS4 if you're a PlayStation Plus subscriber, which is nice and kind of obvious that they should be doing that. God of War 3 Remastered is also available for free. Another World 20th Anniversary Edition for PS3, but cross-buy with PS4 and Vita. Cube Director's Cut. Am I supposed to say Q-U-B-E? Or just...
It's pronounced Cube.
Cube?
Quoob.
Also for PS3.
I like that this is
boy.
just. The more important is that's the director's
Director's
cut. Everything
cut.
that was cut
Also-
was too gritty for the vanilla version.
That was just Cub. Q-U-B. They added the E in the
They
director's
threw
cut.
it in there.
Yeah.
I feel like another World 20th Anniversary Edition, given that was a PS3 game, it's probably like the 24th edition at this point. Like it's not it's like 24th anniversary. It's been a minute. That's a weird old game.
Yeah.
I think Colin Moriarty reviewed that.
Probably.
Yeah, that's like I remember having like a demo of that on some like PC Gamer demo disc a million years ago. It's really hard. It's like very difficult, but it's also very cool and strange and
It's a good piece of history too.
yeah.
So if you need a challenge, that's free. Also for Vita, in addition for cross-buy with PS4, is Sparkle 2 and Foul Play. Foul Play, I assume, has to do with chickens. I
hope so.
I didn't know it's not spelled that way though.
Yeah, but is it just about
It could just be
farting?
foul.
Just gross.
I wish
disgusting.
the game. I wish there was a colon there, and it was Sparkle 2 : Foul Play. Like that's a video game.
Oh god, combine every game on this
All
list
right.
and make an incredible game. Also, as they've been sort of available already for a little bit, they are currently also still available for PS Plus. Here They Lie for PSVR, and then Knowledge is Power, which is one of those PlayLink mobile games, sort of like That's You, where it's like a quiz game against your friends. That to You was always such a blast. I haven't gotten into Knowledge is Power yet, but I'd like to try it. That You required you to really know the people you were playing with, so... See if Knowledge is Power does that either. But obviously, if you, can't afford Spider-Man or any of the other games we mentioned this week, there are a lot of games for free this month and some pretty good options, so it's nice. Looking more ahead, though, toward the future, I was at PAX this weekend. That's looking back, now looking ahead. I saw a few games, some coming out for PlayStation platforms, including Spelunky 2 and Pray for the Gods. Pray for the Gods is that Shadow of the Colossus style game. Have you guys seen this?
Yeah.
Much at all. So it's basically what we played was one of the fights. There will be 5 at least in the game when it launches. And it works essentially like you would expect a Shadow of the Colossus type game to work, but it was made by 3 people. Which is ridiculously impressive. But so I fought this monster. If you're watching the video version, it's this monster that's sort of missing its entire stomach and has this hollowed out skull face on it. It had the standard, you're climbing up its fur, trying to get to certain hiding spots. But what was nice about this game was that it's not one optimal path necessarily. So you can be climbing up the fur, or you have a grappling hook in this game.
Ooh.
And you can shoot at a little spot on the butt of this monster and grapple up to it. Yeah, it's really nice to have. It seems like there's going to be a few more items. There's a deeper RPG system to it that they hinted at. We didn't really get to see it in this demo, but you're going to be able to sort of actually acquire things more in the world, and there will be sort of minions and lower mini bosses for you to fight in addition to these big colossi.
Good. I hate those minions.
Yeah, there will be one-eyed yellow goblins everywhere. This game is really cool. I liked it a lot from that one battle we played.
This was the one that didn't Bethesda get on their case for having did they have to change
The
the
name?
spelling of Prey?
Yeah, so it's now spelled PR, that A and E combo letter. I forget what it's called. And then Y. Originally it was PREY, but there were some issues with, hey, we also have a game called Prey, and we don't want you to be confused with us. Not that they're anything alike.
Yeah.
But
I just want to go on record and say that that's incredibly stupid.
Yeah.
It's a word.
They also,
Yeah.
I think they also shut down Notch's card game Scrolls because it was too close to Elder Scrolls.
Oh yeah, there was an issue with
People
that
will think it's a
title, too.
prequel to the Elder Scrolls. I don't know.
And it wasn't a
Copyright law is
Less worried
frustrating.
about that.
Spelunky 2 was also there. Tom Marks and I, our PC editor, we played it for a bit. I just wanted to report good news. It's still Spelunky. It plays like Spelunky. We didn't really get to... They have talked a little bit about how there are new sort of physics to some of the things you'll encounter, and...
You can
new-
ride a dog or something.
Yeah,
Goldfarb put thousands of hours into this.
Yeah, my yeah, see, look at that. You could ride the dog. My
Yeah.
wife platinumed this, practically broke her Vita playing it constantly. We've had numerous fights about it. She would say, hold on, I'm almost finished. And I'm like, it's procedurally generated. I work in this industry.
You have no way of
know
knowing
there
that.
is no end to this game. She's like, I've gotten to hell the second time, but I still haven't. And it was just like, I mean, if you never mess with this game, it's a incredible game. Really like a wonderful, just I think of all that sort of the procedurally generated sort of roguelike games that have come out. This one is really, really cool. And the fact that it was kind of built up by one dude, Derek Yu, from from a browser game, and then he put it on Vita, and it's ooh, wow, look at that. That's really cool. So water physics.
We didn't get to see the water physics there in the game. We were still playing essentially what functionally served as sort of the same intro levels from Spelunky 1.
Yeah.
That said, this game will have online cooperative play, which is a big thing people were missing. So Andrew Goldfarb will finally play an online multiplayer game.
You can have a
He'll have a friend.
Spelunky tryst with my wife.
I don't condone any of that.
Probably one of the worst things ever said on this show.
Yeah,
Spelunky tryst. Well, great news.
boy.
Spelunky tryst 2
Spelunky
is
Trust
free
with my
on
wife
PlayStation
is the
Plus.
whole. Oh boy. Anyway, yeah. So Spelunky 2 played like Spelunky. I'm excited to actually dive into some of the more complex stuff that they're adding to the game. But it's nice to see that they didn't try to break what is such a perfect formula that they really found. One of the other games I want to talk. It hasn't really been confirmed for any platforms necessarily, but I think it seems tailor made to PSN and Xbox Live and all of that stuff. It's called Bloodroots. And this game is, the best way I can describe it is how Tom Marks described it, which is it would be Samurai Lumberjack. So you're essentially like a Samurai Jack style lumberjack. Everything you do, it's a Hotline Miami style, like one-hit kill, but everything in the environment is essentially your weapon. So you can grab like an axe and actually kill someone with a one hit in the axe, but you can also grab a carrot and murder someone with a carrot.
Wow.
Basically everything is a weapon, but what's really cool is a lot of them have variations. So if you're watching, this is a dev who is playing the gameplay to show different variations of weapons that you could use. So he
used a log.
Times. Yeah. So what's really cool is you can, if you were just watching, there's a wheelbarrow you can ride to smash into enemies, but you can also take the wheels off of it and throw those around, and they kind of ping pong around the environment.
Oh, this looks like so much fun.
I love
so
this.
I am immediately on board with any video game where you can use a fish as a weapon. And you can do that. I saw him.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And there are also, they mentioned there are a few sort of homage items in the game. Like one that's coming up soon in the demo is it's a bear trap, but it essentially functions like a chain chomp in Mario.
Right.
So it'll just shoot out and attack a guy, but it will also launch you into the air. So
You
that
rode
can
a wagon,
immediately
then
attack
took the
another guy.
wheels off and used them as weapons.
Yeah, it's pretty great. And then
Cool.
the ladder can be used to also hit guys, but propel you up to another level.
Looks very fast.
Yes, it is
It's
super.
like nuclear throne, but like very fast.
Yeah, it's basically Hotline Miami, but in the woods.
Yeah.
So what I love about this kind of game, I love Hotline because it's so like, it's obviously crushingly difficult, but it's got this wonderful margin for chaos where you can accidentally win sometimes, where you're like, what did I do? I killed everyone by accident by like throwing a frying pan through a window or something.
It also looks like it's very snappy in terms of like dying, restarting. That's like really what something like Hotline Miami or a year or two ago, Mr. Shifty was a game I got really into.
Oh, yeah.
The same type of deal, just hyper violent, top down, and just very snappy. When you die and you restart, you're right back in
Just
there.
right back in, yeah.
A game like this really needs to nail the feel of being able to just be in that flow so often, and like the hits that you get feel so great, and then also if you mess up, it is so instantly back into the action. It's super great. There's no exact release date or release consoles, but I imagine it will come to everything under the sun. It's a really fun game. I had a blast. I played through that level like 5 times just to see all the little items you could use. It was a blast. Speaking of Nuclear Throne, just off the cuff, Vlambeer, the developer of Nuclear Throne, also accidentally sort of revealed a new game at PAX, and Tom Marks and I rushed to the booth to cover it. We have an interview with Vlambeer Rami Ismail from the studio. He talks about what this sort of smaller, it looks like a bullet hell shooter, but the way it works is that it's actually very strategic, so that when you stop shooting, your ship will lock onto whatever the nearest enemy is, and that's how you target. You can't actually target while you shoot. It's locked in while you're shooting, and enemies don't also spawn until you are far enough away from the debris of another dead enemy. So you could essentially kill one enemy and just leave the screen, and the game would still be going. And so it's actually like a very strategic shoot 'em up.
Wow.
So it's an interesting game. There's no name for it. There's no release plans for it. It's still going through development and everything. But it was
Did
just
you make up a name?
Untitled Goose.
Space is pretty cool.
Nope, that's an actual game.
Yeah, Untitled Space game would work.
Untitled Space
Beautiful.
game.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Ship it.
But yeah, there were a lot of really cool games at PAX. Thank you to everyone who said hello or beyond or wanted to say beyond but didn't. A few of you hit me up on Twitter. Please say hello and beyond. We always are happy to yell back at you. But yeah, there were a lot of really cool games, and I think there's a lot of stuff in addition to the onslaught of amazing AAA games we have coming out this fall a few really exciting things to look forward to.
Yeah, there's some great indie stuff on the horizon. There's we don't have B-roll for it, but my friend Pedro, Devolver's putting out, which is like a side scroller Hotline Miami meets John Wick, except you're using a skateboard and like a frying pan to kill people. It's a lot's going on there. Also, you have a banana who talks to you.
Untitled Talking Banana Game.
Untitled Goose Game, which we've seen, which is about a jerk goose who's on the loose and he's trying to steal.
You're waddling around,
steal some turnips from the farmer, and then of course there is Dam View built from what is it?
Built from nothing.
Built from nothing.
Yeah, Tom played that at PAX 2 and he really liked it. He basically called it like a depressing Stardew Valley about capitalism.
Yeah, or like Animal Crossing, what it really is when you get under the hood.
Yeah. He really was sort of impressed by that too. We also saw like Streets of Rage 4, which plays like Streets of Rage, which is nice.
Good. Really weird if they just scrapped the whole thing and they were like, yeah, Streets of Rage is kind of calmed down. It's now a turn-based visual novel. Okay.
Streets of calmness.
But yeah, there were a lot of really cool games. There's a lot coming up on that horizon. Obviously, we mentioned everything releasing this week, including Spider-Man. So to wrap up the show, we wanted to do a Spidey-focused rendition of Rapid Fire. And so we have a few questions from the Beyond Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/podcastbeyond. Alan Coffey asks, do you get to deliver pizza in the game?
No.
A lot of pizza places.
There are a lot of pizza places. We are going to try and do a rundown on them on Up at Noon this week.
Good.
I love New York. I love pizza. I love New York City pizza. This game doesn't have a lot of that. Brendan Graber, who's writing the wiki for us, got a single photo of pizza in a garbage can, which is not really a great representation. I don't know, people that don't live in New York.
Yeah, well, I did want to ask very quickly.
Lactose intolerant.
Brian, we're both from New York and lived there for a while. What did you think of this representation of New York?
I think it really nailed a lot of the small details that I really miss about the city. It absolutely made me miss New York more than I always say. I've said on a bunch of things before that New York to me is like the one that got away.
Yeah.
I did a whole podcast about New York City with Jared Petty and just how much I love it there. It's a very special place to me. And I think that this, and again, we're going to do a rundown Up at Noon about our favorite little New York City details, but there's like Timberland boots. There's like the weird black squirrels you see in Central Park where you're like, what's wrong with them? There's like weird liquor stores that look like they're out of business, but they're still open.
Yeah.
There's bodegas with like 6 items in them that you're like, this is a drug front. Like there's a lot of really cool stuff like that. I don't know how much of that is accidental and how much of it is just there, but it really feels like a really actual living, breathing representation in New York. I can definitely tell that they went there and they took some pictures and some videos.
Yeah, they definitely like glossed over a few intersections or changed things around for story purposes and everything. And obviously NYU is now ESU, so like some of my old college buildings are not there in any way.
Yeah, I tried to find my old apartment and which was on 27th and 2nd or 3rd, and it was it just basically jumped from 25th to 28th. And there's just like a building there. But I'm glad that there's still a grid. It's kind of it's I would say it's a more accurate representation of New York City than Watch Dogs 2 is of San Francisco, having lived in both cities. Watch Dogs 2 felt like a fever dream. It jumped straight from like Hayes Valley to Golden Gate Park. It skipped right over Haight Street and other key areas. And this game I think is a lot more straightforward in terms of representing Manhattan.
Like you could possibly find your house.
I found my apartment building.
Yeah, which is
cool.
Cool.
It's really cool. Yeah.
And so if you go to Harlem, the neighborhood looks a little different than it does in Midtown. Like it's not just like copy paste all over the city. So I think they're pretty smart about that.
Philip Steen asks, how does this rank among the best superhero games you guys have played?
It's up there. This is like a possibly my favorite. I mean, this is in the running for Game of the Year contender. Like this is a really, really good game. I'm trying to think of superhero games I've really loved. I think one of my favorites up until this was Lego Marvel Superheroes, which was kind of this wonderful, like the perfect storm of obviously it was Lego, so it's very, very cutesy and silly. That was also in a kind of sandboxy New York. But as far as like actually managing to hit a lot of the beats that I love about the comics, they killed it. They nailed it.
I think it's either my favorite since the first Arkham or it's above that. I think because I'm not really crazy about the tail end of Arkham Asylum, and I think Arkham City does a lot of really awesome things, but kind of falls here and there. And I think that Arkham Knight is a straight up like mediocre game.
Yeah, I think the Arkham games, having read like a ton of Batman stuff, obviously different things about Batman attract different kinds of people. I think that the Arkham series feels much more like Batman adapted into sort of video gamey tropes. Everything is made of carbon fiber. Everything is more violent, grittier. When you punch somebody, it sounds like a shotgun went off. Spider-Man has that a pinch, but it still manages to have a lot of kind of the levity and charm of the comics.
Yep.
I mean, going from just across the myriad different versions he's been in print. It's really good.
Yeah, there's surprisingly not a ton of comic book games. I mean, I'm thinking like Saints Row 2 or 3, which is the one that feels very superhero-y.
Yeah,
that's 4.
Yeah,
I was
four had
thinking
the-
stuff based on actual.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I think it doesn't eclipse Arkham, Asylum, or City for me, but it is 100% up there within, I would assume, like my top 5 superhero games easily. But also, there aren't that many others that stick out like those games did.
Spider-Man Cartoon Maker for Windows 3.1.
Sure.
Yeah,
That's a huge one.
Yep. Spider-Man 3.
I sat next to Greg Miller for years at IGN when he played every Spider-Man game that came out during the kind of dark ages.
That like every year it was like Web of Shadows.
Yeah. And I was texting him about this game the other day, sort of just like it's cool to talk to somebody who is so excited about this, who was there for the dark ages covering these games when they were pretty mediocre. So
I mean, I'm glad that Marvel is kind of whipping their games offering into shape. It sounds like they're actually really committing to being like, hey, we've got a beloved catalog of characters. We've nailed it on the movie front. For whatever reason, we can't figure out games, and it looks like this is starting to kind of turn things around. I have high hopes for whatever Square and Crystal Dynamics are doing for Avengers Project. Like amidst all of those, like they made a really good Spider-Man game for PS2, and then for whatever reason they kind of got off the beaten path and forgot what they were doing. And obviously some of that is limitation. Some of that was Activision being like, this has got to come out this fall. But yeah, like, I mean, that Deadpool game that High Noon Studios put out could have been really, really awesome, but it still had that feeling of like, this is a licensed game.
Yeah.
And this is a game that does not feel like it is a licensed game. It feels like a proper tried and true game.
Yeah, I think it sets a really great benchmark for what Marvel games can do from here. And I think also sort of, like says, hey, going forward, these other games that we put out have to live up to this. I think
it's like with the movies. What Max just said is like you can go and watch a Marvel movie even if you're not a comic book fan. I will admit I am not the hugest comic book fan, but like that doesn't stop you from enjoying this game. Like anybody can play this game and have fun.
Yeah. There is so much more to talk about when it comes to Spider-Man on PS4. We will have a lot more discussion on this show and IGN in general, so be sure to stick around for all of that. Where can people find the rest of you guys when you're not talking about Spider-Man? Brian, where are you?
Oh, I don't have an answer to that because this week we'll be talking more about Spider-Man.
Okay. So where are you also talking about?
We will be on Up at Noon this week, which is Thursday at 12 p.m. Pacific on IGN, YouTube, and Twitch. We stream live every Thursday, and it's just a goofy talk show that Max and I do. We'll be talking a lot about Spider-Man. I'm also on Nintendo Voice Chat, and you can find me on Twitter at Agent Bizzle, where I am also talking about that Spider-Man.
Mark, where are you talking about Spider-Man and just hanging out?
Probably just on Twitter at Mark_Medina. I'm like the podcast. Hey, we need a fourth, so I can't say like watch me on this show, but at Mark_Medina on Twitter.
Gotcha. And Max, where can we find you talking about Spidey? And
also over on Up at Noon doing that. And I'm just Max Scoville on Twitter. Really quick, we had one question from David Negrete. He said, if I open up my statue in the collector's edition of Spider-Man as soon as I get the game, will it be a really big spoiler? Not exactly, but you should still save it for when you beat the game, and then it'll be a fun prize that won't ruin anything.
I would agree. Yeah. I actually haven't seen one in person, but don't just wait till you beat
He's
the
holding Mary Jane's skull.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Well,
It's cool that they used real hair, though. I thought that was a nice touch.
I know.
It's that little piece there.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
if you want other fake spoilers about Spider-Man, I am at JM Dornbush on Twitter. This has been Beyond episode 558, of which I have been hosting it. Thank you all so much for watching.
You were doing so great, too.
That was the joke. Beyond.
Beyond.
We did it.
We did it.
A good
We did it. Yeah.
Okay.
I was bringing it back around to the beginning.